Good morning everyone. Let's get started with the first session of media and development class. We are going to discuss about concept of development. The concept of development is one of the most fiercely debated ones in contemporary social sciences. There is a reason why it is mostly debated among social scientists, political scholars, policymakers, academicians, so on and so forth. Um, it's subjective in nature. There are various ways in which development could be conceptualized. It varies from person to person, and the understanding is largely associated with modernization, the process of modernization, industrialization, social change, progress, growth in society. So when we say that a society is modern or a society is industrialized or a society has undergone tremendous amount of social change, um, the society is growing up, progressing, and we often tend to equate that with development. Development is desirable and positive for society in general and community in particular. Now, one thing that we are going to discuss throughout this semester is by breaking um, society into multiple units. Okay, the smallest social unit being your family, and then it goes on to the immediate community or the immediate environment that you surround, followed by the society largely. And development is mostly desirable and positive in nature, but rarely it is discussed as possibly hazardous and destructive for environment or of social values and culture. And largely this happens because people have a very myopic understanding of development. People try to conceptualize development from the point of view of their own individual growth and success, and this in turn kind of puts so much of stress and pressure on the environment that you surround. And most of the times those ideas are ignored, those ideas are not considered, um, because we don't see the larger perspective. We don't care for the social values, we don't care for the community. There are only a handful of individuals who most of the times work towards the betterment of the society, and rest of the people are they carry a sort of a capitalistic attitude or mindset towards how the society is evolving or not evolving. um, the concept of development is also rarely framed in the context of history or in relative terms. When you look at the history of a particular country or a particular community, we need to understand whether they have actually developed or they have developed superficially. So when I say about superficial development or actual development is supposed to be holistic in nature. It's supposed to be organic. It's supposed to be holistic. A society or a community or it must grow in a certain organic fashion. And most of the times we don't consider history, we don't learn from history when we try to talk about the developing phase of a particular community or a particular society. This is what happens most of the times. Development as a concept has evolved since Second World War from a very narrow econometric term to a dynamic one. Okay, so when we start off defining development or conceptualizing development, it was largely looked at from a economical prism. Okay, that's why it's called a narrow econometric term. It's defined as a narrow econometric term to a dynamic one. It's dynamic because it's constantly evolving. It's evolving, and most of the times all development is considered to be human development, which has a bit of a problematic nature to it, because we are only considering the development of human beings, and human beings do not stay in isolation. They stay amidst other organisms as well, who surround the environment. So while defining development, we only focus on human development, which is a bit problematic in nature. The focus of development is largely on the quality of human lives. So throughout you must understand that whenever we are trying to conceptualize development, it must be towards the quality of human lives over any other thing, and your in surrounding environment in which all lives could be sustained. Okay, so development got to be sustainable in nature, and most of the times it must be measured from the quality of human lives and quality of all human lives, something that you need to pay attention to. We will be discussing about it as we go further throughout the semester as to why the quality of life is also selective in nature, and only bunch of people or only handful of individuals within a particular community um, tend to enjoy that better quality of human life as against the others. The most of the times, society is divided, on economic lines, and this has a direct collateral impact on how we see the quality of human lives. And the focus is always individualistic in nature rather than communitarian, and there is where all sort of conflicts related to development also arise. um, the early concept of development, when it was conceptualized right after the Great Depression of the Second World War, overlooked human and environmental factor. The focus was largely on rebuilding society from an industrial point of view, from a modern economic point of view. And in this process, what happened is the environment kind of took a back seat, or all the environmental factors which must have been considered at the first place were overlooked. Um, Development as a concept was inspired from the Western industrialization process, because industrialization brought in a capitalistic form of economy, and it saw to it that the market is driven by the model of growth and concept through an economic dimension. That's what we spoke about when I said that earlier it was seen from a prism of economy and economic growth and success. The social dimension through areas like health and education were given prominence much later in the 50s and 60s. Okay, largely in the 60s, that okay, we need to build a society from other point of view or perspective. That's why healthcare and education got a certain amount of prominence as against the basic human survival amenities. So the focus earlier would be just to survive with health, with food, clothes, and shelter, and post that the next thing that was brought in by different social scientists and theorists was that okay, we need to pay attention to, or kind of bring our focus to health and education, because these two are very crucial arenas through which we could look at whether a society has actually evolved or not. Then the notions as such as functional literacy or human resources revealed that development is still dominated by economic growth theories with no scope for rural development or communications. Okay, we need to understand what functional literacy is and why it is highlighted. The reason why I have highlighted functional literacy is a society would only progress if people are literate, or we can look at the development of a society from the point of view or perspective of whether people are literate enough. And mere literacy doesn't solve the problems or issues that are there, that exist in the society. The framework of literacy got to be functional in nature. People should be able to use the knowledge that they have, or the education that they are getting, in order to survive in the society, or make a society a lot more conducive to live. Okay, functional literacy would also focus on how we are understanding or interpreting our work. I mean, what I'm studying against what kind of a work I'm picking up, whether there is enough knowledge that I have in order to bag a job, in order to take care of the financial situation of my family or my own self. And what am I doing with that knowledge? Am I just restricting it to my own sustainability or my immediate family sustainability, or I'm also extending the knowledge or extending the education that I've got in order to be a part of a larger participatory cause, which would be to build the society, or which would be to contribute to the foundational aspects of the society. And thus human resources, that leads us to human resources, how a community of individuals can come together and use the knowledge that they have, or the education that they have acquired over a period of time, to help develop the society in a much better way. But those kind of ideas were still restricted or looked at from an economic growth point of view. That if the focus is on townships, the focus is on urban areas, the focus is on the growth of how a society can bring in more factories and more mills and better infrastructure, then our problems is solved. So it's still connected with the economic ideas, and there was very little scope for rural development. The focus was never paid at to how rural spaces can develop, or how communication network can be built around that. Because largely, whether it is east or west, if you see, um, our landmass is surrounded by more number of people who are rural in nature, in the sense there are more rural areas as against urban areas. So if our focus is restricted to just urban economy or urban economic growth, because this is where all the offices, all the banks and all those kind of things, all the institutions are built, and then the focus gets shifted, and the attention gets shifted to just economic growth in the urban areas, then the rural development takes a backseat, or communication with that, or the communication structure, communication network with the structure gets affected in one way or the other. In the 70s, development concept was redefined and broadened with the addition of three dimensions. Okay, it's largely in the 70s that developmental theorists or academicians or social scientists kind of looked at it. It was sort of looking back at what has happened in the last 2 decades, and how a revolution could be brought in as far as the development concept is concerned, and expand the scope and broaden the scope, to look at the various opportunities that are in the periphery. So, what are the three dimensions? Let's look at it. First one is the ecological dimension, that focuses on population, food, employment, and nature. Throughout this semester, one thing that would come in by and large is the concept of population, and how population kind of affects or greatly impact the development of a particular society. A very small, easier example to understand is, if there are more number of people and there is less resources, likely that the resources get divided into the smallest possible units in order to pass it on to everyone. So if the population is less and the resources are more, or the created resources are more, we are likely to have better benefits. So wherever there is more population, the development challenges are more. It's a straight equation. Then food, we all need to survive. So the quality of food and the amount of food, whether everybody is having food at the first place or not, and second, whether that food is nutritious enough for our physical and mental growth as individuals, as communities, as society. Then do we have enough employment? Do we have enough jobs? One of the biggest issues that happened with the Great Depression, that happened in the West, in Europe, if you remember, post World War, would be that there was no jobs, because the society was shattered. It was a phase where the economy was in such a bad shape that people did not have jobs at the first place. Cut to at this point in time also, if you would see, let's say for example, our country as against a first world country. In a first world country, by and large, for each individual, there are almost 1.5 to 2 jobs, in their respective sectors. Whereas if you look at developing economies like ours, the fight is always to find the best fitting person. Now, why is that fight, and why there are not enough employment for all the people? Why people can't survive and sustain by doing jobs with the amount of education that they have, irrespective of whatever they have studied? Okay, so depending on that, do we have enough, jobs or enough employment? We have more people, but we have less employment. So that's something that we need to pay attention to when we speak about the ecological dimension, because the ecology gets impacted accordingly. Then last part is nature, straight away connected to ecology. That whether we have taken enough care, in the last 2 decades, or right from the process of industrialization, that nature has always taken a back seat, and we have never paid that sort of an attention. It's only much later in the 70s and later on that we started having conclaves, and started talking and discussing about the ecological aspects of a society. Till that point in time, it was always industrial growth and more progress, so on and so forth. Okay, next one is the scientific dimension, technology transfer and knowledge expansion through science. Whether in the last decades, that is the 50s and 60s, post World War, whether enough scientific research has happened and whether knowledge transfer and technology transfer in whatever state they were in has happened to science or not. So from that stage to 2020, if we look at it, we have progressed um, uh, tremendously as far as scientific dimension is concerned. And when we look at the largest, you know, understanding a larger concept of development, we can attribute scientific dimension to have played a very significant role in terms of knowledge transfer. The fact that you can enjoy a Uber ride at this point in time or order food through Swiggy, and there is artificial intelligence, there is augmented reality, so on and so forth, all kind of intervening in healthcare sector, all intervening in education sector. All these things happened over a period of time because technology transfer has been possible, and people have done so much of scientific experiments and come up with several ways and procedures through which knowledge sharing could have happened. Then the last part is the cultural dimension, communication and information sharing through larger fabric of diverse cultures. Now we need to understand the society is it's not a static unit. It's always evolving, always expanding, and each society has its own history. Each community has its own history. Um, where they were 500 years back, they are not now in the same state, and each country, each community has their own set of cultural ideas and cultural value system to share. So the more diverse the culture becomes, the more inclusive the community or the society becomes, we are likely to experience the diversification of culture, and through which several communication and information sharing would be possible. We can communicate with each other. The fact that we can now sit and with a mouse click, we can know about any part of the world and what happens there when we are planning to travel, um, or when we visit a place. We learn so much from the ethnicity, from the food culture, from the people over there, from the language. So there is so much to learn and evolve, and we can understand that the fact, the reason why we always celebrate the concept of unity in diversity as far as India is concerned, is because of this, that over a period of time we have learned that several communities reside over here. We have a long cultural history when we look back. So this helps in kind of gaining what we call as the cultural capital. Okay, so the approach of development is therefore driven by local models, histories, and traditions. So one model might not be suitable, for everyone. That's why the primacy must be given to the local ones. We must pay attention to our histories. We must pay attention to our tradition, our cultural values, and see that depending on what sort of a geography it is, what are the geographical strength, what are our resources, we need to create framework. So in the 70s, this is something that the social scientists proposed, that if we need to really develop uh, from a holistic point of view, we need to pay attention to the most local ones. That's why now there's so much of shout out for what we understand as global plus local. That the global model is the most appropriate model because it considers history, it considers tradition, it considers what are our geographical resources and strengths, and we can try to sustain and survive accordingly. And they are the most crucial ones, whether it is people, their ideas, whether historically how we have evolved, and whether the traditional knowledge that has been passed on from time to time by our forefathers, how much importance we must give it to them with the modern outlook and modern approach, of course. But then it has to be a healthy marriage of both of these things. It cannot be isolated, and it cannot be something that is borrowed from other geographies. And this is one of the mistakes that most of the times people did back in the day. When we look at the West model of uh, development, they didn't consider the earlier civilization, they didn't consider the earlier traditional knowledge that has been passed on. Very aggressively they pushed for an economic way of sustenance, economic model of development, and in the process what happened is the local resources or the local ways of living took a backseat, and it never got an opportunity or a scope to actually expand beyond a certain point, because economy can only take care of one part. Unless we pay attention to strategies and the roles that the local models could play, it won't work going forward. The problem of developed economies and developing countries are quite different in nature. Okay, so while the problems of developed economies relate to growth, developing economies are concerned with development most of the times, and that's a clear demarcation. Okay, so we can't create the same framework. We can't just look at one way of understanding things and say that okay, it is applicable to everyone. A developed economy is already in a certain state. Okay, they have reached a certain phase of economic success and growth, as against a developing economy which is still in a growing state. So developing economies would largely be concerned with the idea of development, while the developed ones would pay attention to other tangential ways of growing. Paying attention to, let's say, expanding the healthcare sector, expanding the education sector. The very fact that all the colonized nations do not have that kind of colleges and universities or healthcare facilities as against the first world nations, which are considered the developed ones, um, is something that can help us understand or engage or analyze why this sort of a difference exists at the first place. The increase in the real output of goods and services is called as economic growth. It's very easy to understand. Okay, the economic growth could be really equated with the real output of goods and services, whether that is expanding or not. So the overall progress of the country through institutional and technical changes is known as economic development. Whether all the money that is earned as revenue over a period of time is put back to the overall structural development, technical changes, and institutional changes or not. Then the concept of economic development, because most of the times we would pay attention to whether the economy is developing or not, because this plays almost a foundational role when we tend to conceptualize development. If there is an increase in real national income and real per capita income, so we need to look at real national income, and we need to look at real per capita income, and then see whether there is a marginal increase in both of it or not. And it's a really long term process. Economic development doesn't happen in one day or 1 year, and it takes decades and decades, and over a period of time there are so much of setbacks that happen. you know the natural calamities that happen there, financial difficulties across the globe, and they have a larger impact, so on and so forth. And the very fact that we were colonized, or there are so many colonized nations, that our country's economy or our country's resources were governed by somebody else, some other establishment or some other dispensation. So it's not our individual call, as a country. It's always left to in the hands of decision makers, policy makers, or those people who are governing us, even if we are in a democratic setup. There are some changes that take place in economic and social systems towards the economic development. Okay, the structural changes of the social systems must change in accordance to what would help us develop a society. And economy, of course, has a larger role to play. So we tend, from time to time, we need to look at whether the social system that we are adhering to at this point in time, whether it is conducive enough for the development of a society or not. And so that's why it's always always a work in progress. It's always transformative in nature. We can't just look at one segment and say that okay, we have evolved, we are an evolved society, because it's always a dynamic one. So making strategies and re-strategizing, where you are looking back at whether we have utilized our resources in the most proper way, whether it's a healthy marriage of the traditional knowledge that has been passed on by our forefather, along with the scientific approach or a scientific temperament. So here we are with all the dispensations of science and technology, and along with all the traditional knowledge that has been passed on by our forefathers. So unless those things come together, we might not be in a state to actually um, you know talk about economic development or social development at the first place. Then the standard of living and welfare of people will increase in employment opportunities. Okay, if the living standard is better, if people are in a better state, better state of not bothering or being not marred down by poverty, if food, clothes, and shelter are taken care of, education is taken care of, is healthcare is taken care of a particular community and a society, automatically the standard of living grows up, and this would lead to better employment opportunities, because the institutions can grow. Institutions can grow tremendously, and it can create more number of employment opportunities, because you are, as individuals or as communities, your knowledge base is also increasing. Your health, your health is also bettering up. So once employment opportunities, the challenges of employment are addressed, there would be a clear reduction in economic inequalities, and that would lead to eradication of poverty. And once poverty is eradicated in one way or the other, we would reach a certain stage of economic development, which is what happens most of the times with first world countries. Though there are setbacks, though there are economic recessions that happen during this pandemic, also we are, if you are following news, you know that global economy is in the doldrums, and everybody's trying, all the countries are trying to rework their policies, trying to relook what possibly could be done, at the one hand to deal with the pandemic, and the other hand to see to it that people do not end up in economic chaos that would lead to civil war, that would lead to different problematic situations. Um, so that is for the first world. When we look at the third world countries like ours, uh, the very fact that we still have a larger number of people the below poverty line. Okay, so how do we address those challenges? Because of population explosion, because of the population situation, I would say, rather, population situation, we lack the basic facilities, basic standard of living. The welfare of the people need to be taken care of in the process, so that we would eventually pay attention to we can eventually pay attention to healthcare sector, we can eventually pay attention to education sector. So many kids drop out from the school, and they work at child labor. Why is that situation in the first place? Okay, so kids are supposed to go to school, have basic education, and make themselves employable in nature. So unless we create those kind of opportunities, um, these anomalies, economic inequalities would persist, and we will never be able to eradicate poverty. So the attention will always be to create a holistic, sustainable development concept, and constantly work towards it. Okay, so that is by and large about the concept of economic development, um, and development as a concept. So in the next session, we will discuss about the various definitions. um, Hope this session is useful to you, and thank you so much. I'll see you in the next session.